Welcome back, everyone. This is Zach, the Money Nutritionist, and today I want to get straight to the point of talking about the top 7 investments you can start making right now. So for those of you who don't know, my job as the Money Nutritionist is to provide you with the healthiest money decisions possible. And those are things like accounts you should open or investments you should invest in that are healthier and safer and long-lasting. What I want to discuss with you today are the top 7 investments you can start making now if you're in your 20s and 30s. Because what I found out is most of my followers are between the ages of 24 and 34. So I really wanted to make a video that stressed the importance of the investments and things you should start doing now. So before I jump into the details, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up on the video, it really helps go a long way to stretching the reach of the channel and hopefully impacting more people. So if you haven't already, crush that button. So the very first thing that I would recommend someone doing that is in their 20s or 30s who really is saying to themselves, I'm ready to make more money, I'm ready to buy a house, I want a nicer car, I'm ready to focus on my career and start a family. Or you could be someone that says, I'm tired of working the 9 to 5, I want to be financially free, what do I need to do to create a stable base so that I can follow my passions? So if this sounds like you and you're ready to make a change, the very first thing you should do is open a high interest savings account, because most savings accounts don't have high interest rates. Basically, the money you put in is probably what you're going to get back out, except you'll make about 10 cents. But there are savings accounts that have higher interest rates. What you need to be aware of when you do your Google search for high interest savings account is you want to make sure there are 3 things that you're aware of. You want to make sure there are no minimum balances that you have to keep on the account. You also want to make sure that you don't have an interest rate that's below 1%. I would say that 1% or around 1% is the baseline for high interest savings accounts. And the third thing, and probably most important thing, is make sure there are no monthly fees. Some savings accounts do have monthly fees. We have now entered a world where checking accounts also have monthly fees if you don't meet certain criteria. So those 3 things, the interest rate being above 1%, there being no monthly payments, and there being no minimum balance. That's your 3 criteria for tracking down the best high interest savings account for yourself. Those accounts that I would recommend would be Ally Bank account, Discover, and Capital One's 360 account. The second best investment you can make right now would be to open a Roth IRA account. And if you've seen my other videos, I've been stressing this point over and over and over again. And literally yesterday, I had lunch with my cousin and I mentioned the same exact thing. It's because a Roth account has massive tax advantages. The great thing about a Roth IRA account, which just means individual retirement account, because you're saving for retirement, what that means is when you take that money out when you're in retirement, you don't pay any taxes on that money. That's crazy. It's absolutely absurd. So when it comes to the Roth IRA account, you can put in $5,500 a year. That's the maximum amount that you can put into that account. And if you continuously do that every single year, that money will be tax-free by the time you take it out. So for instance, if you put in $458 every month over the next 30 years, and let's assume it makes 6% every single year, then that money is going to come out to be about $434,000. If you're buying index funds with that money though, it will actually double to over $800,000. The best places you should look when it comes to opening a Roth IRA account, which is just the same as opening a bank account, you should check with Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, or I personally have been using Ameritrade. All of them are going to give you almost the same benefits. On to number 3. The next thing you want to do is invest into index funds. The best way I can describe an index fund is, let's say you wanted to own a share of the 500 largest companies in the world. And these would typically be your S&P 500 companies. So let's say if you wanted to buy a share in all of them, that would just be a nightmare. Trying to go through and buy shares of every large company in existence because you figure that's safe. They're a large company, they've been around for a long time, they're probably not going anywhere for a long time, and you want a piece of the pie of all of them. Well, the good thing is you don't have to go through and buy a share of every single one of those. You can buy what's called an index fund, and that index fund is basically pulling together money and investing in all those companies across the board. And typically an index fund will just stay course with the S&P 500 if that's the index you're following. The great thing about that is you don't have to worry about diversification, and you also don't have to go through and pick and choose individual stocks. They actually say the average investor over 20 years is only going to make about 5.1% in returns. Now, if you decided to put that same amount of money for 20 years into an index fund, you would actually make twice as much at around 9.85% return. So it makes more sense to just put your money into an index fund rather than trying to pick individual stocks. And the great Warren Buffett actually advises most investors to put their money into an index fund instead of trying to stock pick, because the average person isn't that great at stock picking. And quite honestly, for many people, you might win a couple times. You might time it right if everything's in the crapper and all the stocks are low and you bought and then you held for a little bit. Of course you're gonna make a profit, but you have to do that every single year and every single time. Something else to be aware of. If you're an investor and you're saying, well, it's because most people aren't good at picking stocks. I'm great at picking stocks. I read the news, I follow trading, blah, 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 blah. Great, that's good for you. But let me tell you something. Over the past 2 decades, if you missed just the top 10 trading days, over 2 decades, the top 10 days, if you missed any one of those days and you had sold your stock or didn't own the right things, your earnings would be cut in half. Yes, in half. That means just 10 days over all of those years, if you weren't in the market in the right securities, your returns would be cut in half. This is why the healthiest decision is to leave your money in the market. People are too busy trying to buy low and sell high, time the market, day trade, swing trade. Just put your money into safe stocks or into index funds and leave it alone. And a lot of people get scared when stocks go down and they sell because they think they'll go down more and they can buy at the bottom. No one knows what the stock market is going to do. So the best advice I have for you right now for point number 3 is to invest into index funds. The 3 things you want to be aware of when you're looking for an index fund is, for one, you want to make sure there's a low expense ratio. Under 0.04% is usually the benchmark for that. And the best 2 are probably Vanguard and Fidelity. So some of the index funds you should be aware of, if you want to get into it, would be VT Sachs, FISROX, and SWTSX. Those are pretty solid index funds with low expense ratios. They're not overly expensive, and I think it's something you should really look into if you're looking to create your own solid retirement investment. So investment number 4 is by far my favorite, and I'm assuming you could probably guess that it's real estate. So real estate is something I've been in for the past few years now, and this tactic specifically, which is called house hacking, is something I've been doing, and it's amazing, it's life-changing. And if you're young, it's something that I recommend you do now, because when you're married, it's a little more difficult to do it. It's not saying you can't, it's just a little more difficult depending on your spouse. So basically the problem is your living expenses are going to be 30 to 50% of what you're making. And that's just on average when it comes to the average American rent. So you're paying that money in rent, but what if I told you that all of your living expenses could be paid for? And that's where house hacking comes into play. Because what you're doing is you're looking to buy either a 2, 3, or 4 unit home, and you can buy those homes as your primary residence, which means you're going to live there. And by doing that, you get more favorable loan terms. So your interest rate is going to be much lower. You can live there, and then when you live there, you just rent out the other units. Now you might also be saying to yourself, well, I don't have the money for a down payment for a duplex, triplex, multi 4-unit plex. Well, what I did is I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, and I rented out the 2 other bedrooms. So that's still the same concept as house hacking, because what it does is you bring in enough rental income to where you have no mortgage. And if you do it well enough, or you're in a good area, then you can actually make enough money to where it covers your internet, your water, your electricity, so you're living for free. So imagine that you're living and you have no living expenses. That's 30 to 50% of your income back in your pocket for other things like index funds. Of course, that's the down and dirty way to do it. You obviously need a good credit score. You obviously need to watch your DTI or your debt to income. You need to research and know what your market is like, the better locations to do this strategy. So of course you need to do your research. There's a lot more that goes into it, and we can get into real estate tactics at another time. But the point is, real estate is a fantastic investment, whether you're house hacking or whether you're buying an investment property. So that is my favorite point, and that is point number 4. Now on to point number 5. I wanted to say this was my favorite, but I'd be lying because that's real estate. But I still like this point, and I've also done this one as well. And point number 5 is creating a side business. So when it comes to a side business, it's a great way to give yourself more stability and security, because as you're seeing right now with coronavirus, there's people being furloughed, fired, businesses going under. So if you lose your sole income, what's your backup plan? Do you have any other income that's coming in? So when you're young, this is the perfect opportunity to start a side business or explore your passions. What I want you to do is ask yourself, what are you doing between 6 p.m. and 1 a.m.? For instance, right now, it's 10:32 p.m. and I'm sharing this information with you. This isn't necessarily a side business yet, but it's something I enjoy and it's a hobby of mine. It's something I'm passionate about doing. So I ask you, what are you doing during those hours? That's literally 6 hours. And if you do that every day and weekends, that's almost like a whole other job. That's a whole lot of value that you can provide to other people. And as they say, the more value you provide, the more money you should be getting paid back. So you never know what your side business can turn into. And obviously the point is you want to make money. You might be able to leave your real job one day, but at the end of the day, if you're making more money, you can put that into other investments. So if you're struggling to come up with side hustle ideas, you can actually go to my website and download my free ebook about 95 side hustles you can start today. And they're all actually pretty easy, and many of them you can just do remotely. Now on to point number 6, which is to hire a professional. Now, if you're like me, you try to do a lot of things yourself. I try to do accounting myself. I try to look everything up online about legal issues. But to be honest, it's better if you just hire a professional. It's safer. It might cost you a little bit of money, but it will save you so much more in the end. So if you're in the position to where you might have some real estate or a side business going, I highly recommend that you hire a CPA, because they will save you tons of money when it comes to mistakes that you might make in your business, but it also will help you when it comes to your taxes. They can help you to figure out things like how much of your office space can you write off on your taxes? Should you itemize? Should you take the standard deduction? And as you're going through the year, they can help guide you into making the best decisions. And hiring a professional goes for other categories like lawyers or things like a doctor and things like financial advisors. It's better to seek out professionals than trying to do those things for yourself. For instance, I do get the advice of other financial advisors in certain situations. And it's because most of the time it's free, because they're going to meet with you, gauge your financial position, and then they're going to literally tell you, oh, you've got too much cash here, or oh, you're putting too much there. You should probably just move it over there. And they're just going to give you free advice anyway. If you're buying a house, I use realtors. I don't try to go hunt down and look at every house by myself. So it's best to use a professional like a realtor to help you buy or sell a house and things like that if you're an investor. And none of us are going to try to be doctors. Just go see your doctor. And I also use Legal Shield for my lawyers because it's like $25 a month. I can call them for literally anything. It's actually $30 for the business plan. So not only am I protected and my family's protected for any legal issues, but I can call them with just the dumbest questions, and I do that more than I probably should. But I'll call them up and ask them a business question and say, hey, I just need to know what I can do about opening an account in this other state. How does this work? And they'll just tell you. They're very open about helping you. It's $30 a month. I call them anytime I want, and I did just get a ticket, and it's gonna save me 25% on another lawyer, but that's another story. All I gotta say is do not speed. I haven't had a speeding ticket since high school. Anyway, I digress. The point is, these professionals can save you money, hence the ticket. So seek out professionals, get them to help you with the things that are important so they can protect you and protect your family. And yes, I consider that an investment. At the very worst, it's insurance. And point number 7, we finally reached the last point, and that is to pay down your bad debt. So I know we all hate to hear it. We hate to hear that, oh, you need to pay down your credit cards. It's not as easy as you're making it seem. I know, I understand it, but you gotta get bad debt gone. That's things like your motorcycle, boats, cars especially cars, and literally anything that's on your credit cards. You need to get it gone. It's eating up your payments in interest, and it's killing you in your cash flow. If you have any credit cards, you need to pay them off. That goes for regular credit cards, that goes for retail credit cards at Target. Pay them off. Stop filling them up. And I understand you're paying them off every month, but stop buying things you don't need. That's bad debt, especially when it comes to things like cars. That's probably the biggest one. That is a depreciating asset. So if you have that debt, get it gone. If it's really low, if you do have interest under 4.5%, then it may make sense to not pay it off, only if you're going to invest that money. So let's say you had $20,000 and you were trying to decide whether you should pay off your car loan or invest that money. If the interest rate on that loan is below 4.5%, you should invest that money somewhere else because the returns should be greater. But if you have no intention of investing that money, you just want the debt gone, then by all means, pay off the bad debt. And just as a bonus, because I couldn't resist it, because I think it drives everything else that's on this list, is you need to invest in yourself. Learning isn't something you do in college and grade school. Learning is an ongoing process for the rest of your life. You know, as they say, if you're not learning, you're dying. So I say that you need to invest in yourself, whether that's more school, whether that's some type of course or license, or you're trying to better yourself in your health and your relationships, whatever that might look like. Invest in yourself because it's a lifelong process, and if you're young now, go ahead and get it out of the way now. Wouldn't it be nice to have most of life's questions and things answered by the time you're 40 and 50? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be 40 and 50 years old and not care about what anyone else has to say to me because I've read and I've got it all down. I'm just kidding. That's probably not going to happen. I'll probably just be just as ignorant when I'm 40 or 50, but I still can think that I'll get there. But the point is, invest in yourself. Read things like philosophy and health tactics and money, of course. But as you learn and grow, you will become a much stronger person, and you will also not have any problem making any of these investments because you will have done them already and you're on to the next level of investments. So I hope that these 7 top investments get you started. Even if you're older than 34, there's no reason you can't start these now if you don't have them already. So get started when you can. Again, those things are having a high interest savings account, making sure that you open up a Roth IRA account, making sure that you can do an index fund, investing in real estate, whether that's investing straight up or house hacking, making sure that if you have time, which we all do, let's be honest, that you start a side business so that you can follow your passions. Also make sure to hire professionals for things that are very important. Don't try to give yourself surgery. I don't want to be held liable for that. And last but not least is paying down the bad debt. Your motorcycles, boats, and cars are just eating up all your money. And it could be going a long way to supporting you and your family. And the way we know what the right decisions are to make is by investing in ourselves. Because we know when we shouldn't take a vacation or buy that brand new car. Because we've read and we've invested time into ourselves to have the restraint to make the right, healthy decisions. So I want to thank you for watching, and if you haven't smashed that like button, go ahead and do it now, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to stay updated on the latest, but more importantly, to stay updated on YouTube, press the subscribe button below.